Welcome back to the Metal Exchange. Justin and Chris here with you for a bonus episode. Today, we are joined by John Macaluso, the mastermind behind Ark and so many other bands that he's been associated with. Chris, obviously, we spoke about Burn the Sun a couple of months ago, and I thought, what better guest to have with us than the man that started Ark and obviously was behind the drum kit for so many other albums. So, John, I'll cut to you in 1 second, but Chris, how are you, man?
Doing well, buddy. Doing well. How are you?
I'm doing great, and I should note at the outset, it's somebody's birthday today, and it's not me and it's not Chris. So, John, welcome to the Metal Exchange, and happy birthday, my man.
Thanks so much. 41. Unbelievable. Yeah. My shoes are 41 years old. Yeah, man, thanks so much. I turned 54 today. I can't believe it.
Congratulations. You look great. You sound obviously fantastic on the new Michael Romeo single. We'll get to that at the back end, but I want to kind of start at like the beginning. Obviously, you had been playing drums for some time before Ark. How did you get involved with that project back in the late 90s, and how did you kind of get the band together? How did that project get off the ground?
I got to thank Joe Franco for pretty much getting me out of Comac to start a real drum career because, I mean, he was like Joe Franco. Everybody knows Joe Franco, especially in New York. He was my hero, still is. I took lessons from him, and I was just blown away because to me, Franco was like Eddie Van Halen. You know what I mean? And then I heard he was coming to a drum store in Long Island, and I started to study with him. From then, he would recommend me for gigs. So he recommended me for TNT.
Right.
And so in 1990, I started playing with TNT, and they're from Norway. So it was a lot of trips over to Norway. And we rehearsed in a school that was owned by the guys from a band called Conception, which was Roy Khan from Camelot, you know, and Tora Osby was the guitar player. So it was a school. So after the TNT rehearsals, TNT would go back to the hotel, and I would stay and play floor hockey with the guys in this band Conception.
Right.
And me and the guitarist, a couple of times, we just started to we say, hey, the equipment's here, let's jam. And the first thing we ever played, just me and him, was Al Di Meola, Race with the Devil on a Spanish Highway. So that started the whole flamenco with the double kick and the jungle beats. It was kind of just a jam thing. And we said, wow, nobody plays flamenco guitar and double bass. And if you hear Ark albums, that's a big part of our thing. It just
totally.
Hanging out in the school after rehearsals and jamming to Al Di Meola.
And he's still, and obviously Conception is back. They recorded a new album recently, so they're back in the mix, obviously. So it actually went back to your TNT days where you met him, you know, as Conception was getting off the ground. Is that right?
Yeah, I mean, they had one or two albums out, and you know, I would always go back to Norway for TNT, and we would always hang out, me and him. And we kept saying, one day we're going to do an album. One day we're going to do an album. So then when I left TNT, I was playing with Riot. And I still had a plane ticket from one, because we never finished the tour or something happened. I had a plane ticket from New York to Norway. So I called him up and I said, let's start. And he said, great. So I went over there. We went back into the same school and recorded the first Ark album. And it was meant to be a demo. And what you hear is that when I used my free plane ticket to go to the school, we recorded that whole album in a gymnasium. And
wow.
Yeah, so Ark 1 was recorded in gymnasium on half-inch tape. And it was crazy because after we recorded the album, he had to use the tape to do the Conception demos. So we had to erase all the stuff, man. So
that's hysterical.
So there's no way to like master separate tracks anymore, you know. We didn't expect it to be an album. We didn't have a singer. And then I knew Jorn Landa because he used to hang out with the TNT guys. And he would never speak. He was really quiet. And Tora said, what about Jorn? I said, yeah, I heard Vagabond. He's a great singer. So Jorn sang on it. And we're the only band to get a record deal in a record store. Me and Tora we were in Oslo. We were walking around. We went to check out some records. And the record company president of Face Front, he also owns Scream magazine. He said, I'll give you guys a deal. I said, great. So we walked out with a record deal out of a record store. and
That's hysterical.
And Peter Gabriel album, actually. But he said he didn't want to redo it. He wanted to put that out. So we mastered it. We mixed it the best we could. Of course, I was big on that mix. You could hear it because it's all drums.
I was listening to it earlier today, and obviously I knew, by way of background, I heard Burn the Sun first, and then I heard the original self-titled album probably years later, just because it was kind of hard to track down or whatever, but I still listened to it, and I noticed that you're very high in that mix, and everything else is kind of like down a little bit through no fault of your own, I'm sure, but it does come through. It is fault of mine.
It is fault of mine. Never get a drummer to mix your album, man. No, I didn't mix it. I was just there, critiquing. No, we mixed it together, me and Tora. That's right. Yeah. That's my fault. Anyway, it still came out great. It's like more of an experimental album, and it's crazy because drum-wise, there's a lot of tunes on that album. For example, the intro of Where the Winds Blow. There's no backbeat. There's no snare drum. Because after playing with TNT and Riot and all these bands, it was very dum dum da dum dum da. I said, let me experiment and get rid of that 2 and 4. And if you listen to the Police, Stuart Copeland, a lot of songs didn't have da da da. So we experimented with strange things like that, man, and in a way, it's a groundbreaking album. I just wish I didn't mix it myself.
Well, it does have some like real charm to it because, and Chris will tell you, a couple of months ago, we had on Gary Weirkamp from Shadow Gallery on with us. And he was saying that it was the same thing with Shadow Gallery, where their debut album that they released had no drummer and was basically a demo that they never intended to see the light of day, but they put it out as their debut album. So it's kind of a parallel there, just because sometimes you don't expect something to come out, but somebody hears it and they're like, we just have to release it as is, and they put it out. Yeah,
or you get that demo-itis thing where the demo is actually better than the album. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I mean, we were ready. We would have recorded a better album, but it's got, like you said, it's got some charm. It's got special moments. And okay, also from Joe Franco, I got recommended to Malmsteen. So I got the Yngwie gig through Franco. And Yngwie, you know how I got the Yngwie gig? I got a call from the management, said I was recommended by Joe. I sent that album, Arc 1, to Yngwie, and I got a call one day, and he said, hey, John, this is Yngwie J. Malmsteen. And he did use the J. He used the J. And he said, I got this album you sent, Arc. Is it you playing? I said, of course it's me playing. And Yngwie loved Where the Winds Blow. Well, I remember when I first went down to meet him to record Alchemy, or to rehearse for Alchemy, he picked me up in his car, and he had the CD. And he was always playing Where the Winds Blow. Also in Soundcheck, we would do a little bit of Where the Winds Blow. But
no kidding.
Yeah, so back to Arc, man. I was trying to do something special, like backbeat all the time, just make rhythm. And it was cool because, Osby was into the flamenco thing and the Latino thing. And in that music, they don't have a snare drum. You know what I mean? So little things like that stick out. And the intro of the album, this is cool. We recorded it in the school. One night we were having a couple of beers, or many beers, and I broke a beer bottle on the floor. So I just jumped on the floor. I put a drum head over it and some broken cymbals, and we put a microphone on it, and I recorded the intro of the album. So it's broken Heineken bottles with a drum head on top and a bunch of broken stuff put through a flanger. So before the very intro of the album, you could hear the glass rattling.
Yeah, and it's one of the few albums it's one of the few albums that opens with a drum fill, which is why I knew you had something to do with that as well, because it's just so unorthodox.
Oh, that's in my contract. Every album has to open.
Yeah, there you go. How was the debut received, in the community? Because you would obviously get back in the studio fairly quickly to record Burn the Sun.
Yeah, it's strange, man. I remember because the internet wasn't big, so it was like magazines and the stuff that was on the internet. We did the album in 98. So it wasn't like everybody was YouTube and everything. It wasn't like that at all. We would read strange magazines sometimes, and one guy wrote something like, what is this so-called creative drumming? Everybody's talking about creative drumming. It just sounds weird to me. So you got like those people who aren't used to it, you know? And one guy was like, wait, it's David Coverdale with Al Di Meola and some crazy drummer. So a lot of people didn't get it. And even I didn't get it in a way because my vision was to have more like a Peter Gabriel or David Bowie kind of vocal. And Tora too, more like moody. And Jorn straight out said, no, I am a singer. I must sing. That was his line. And we let him go, man. And reminiscent of Coverdale and Dio in there. And of course, then his own thing, because Jorn's a chameleon. You could just say, I'll tell you later when we did Burn the Sun, basically we would just call out, Sting, Britney Spears, and he would mimic them. And he's so good where he makes it sound cool. So, I mean, the reaction was strange, but then it started to get strong. Like, hey, this is cool. What is this? And people from like famous bands started to talk about it in the prog world. And I was like, wow, we got something here. And then we got a real deal, and that was for Burn the Sun.
And had you played any shows for with the debut, or had you not really done the live thing at that point?
No, we didn't do any shows, but when we did Burn the Sun, Arc, really, the first album is a trio. We got a keyboard player to come in as a session man.
Right.
And if you look, the bass is done by Tora Orsby, but we wrote, it looks kind of nerdy if you got, a new band and it's the guitar player playing a bass. So we gave him a name, Todd Poulsen.
I had no idea that was like a gimmick name.
Yeah, we did like a real American name like Todd, and we mixed it with like a Norwegian thing, like Sen, Todd Poulsen. We spent the whole night trying to come up with a name. So Tora's the bassist, and then we got a keyboard session guy, Trond, that's the name, Trond Nagadal, and he's killer. He came in one night and just did all that stuff. So first time we ever played a gig, the first gig was we put out Burn the Sun, and Portnoy knew our A&R guy very well in France, and Mike said it's one of his favorite albums, Burn the Sun, and Pain of Salvation had a new album. So he said, a record company called and they said, do you guys want to come and do an acoustic trio? You can do 3 gigs in France, 1 in Paris in the, what was it again? In Tower Records, and 1 in Lyon, and also this Dream Theater convention thing. And it was strange. It was like in a gigantic, club called Elysée Moment, which is burnt down now. And it was like, people with memorabilia, and Mike was there and he played with the guys from Pain of Salvation. And we did a trio. It was just me on a kick drum and a snare and like, they call hot rods. There's wooden stick brushes, like brush sticks. So, and Tora only on acoustic guitar, no electric, and Jorn. And that was our first gig at the Portnoy thing, and then we did Tower Records and Lyon, and the cool thing was to see all these people of all ages at this show in Tower Records. It was like babies, 75-year-olds, people with baguettes and berets, 30-year-olds, and I said, we got something here. It was instant. I said, we got it, man. Let's do it. And we all planned on doing it anyway, but from basically Burn the Sun was like when we realized we got something cool.
And obviously, I guess that's how, as you get back into the studio, is that how like Randy and Matt's kind of get in the mix? Obviously, both unfortunately no longer with us, but just in terms of like,
crazy. My best friends, Arc was still a trio when we did Burn the Sun. So it was me and Tora. We wrote a lot. Like the way we did the albums, both of them, old school. We get in the studio and we just jam, and record everything. And then we listen at night and we pick the parts. This is really cool. Does it connect with this? So we spent about 5 months doing that, writing all the material. And then we went to the studio in Germany with Tommy Newton, and we started recording. And we did the drums and the guitar. And we said, who are we going to use for bass and keys? Because we had a bass player come in, a Dutch dude. And he was good, but it didn't fit. And Tommy, the producer, he wanted somebody different also. So I said, wait, I was playing with Yngwie at the time. I was just like on a break. So we did Burn the Sun between Yngwie's tour and the Water End All Wars album. And I said, what about I get Mats and Randy? And Tor was like, okay. So we called him up. And I said, Randy, bring 2 basses. Bring your fretted bass and bring the fretless because I want to use fretless everywhere. Okay.
And it sounds perfect on this album. So I'm glad you brought that up.
Yeah, I mean, Ark pretty much up until the end, we were still experimenting in the studio. So we wrote a lot of stuff like crazy, but we didn't do 100%. We left some room. And Tommy was really strict. Tommy, the producer, he was like, that's perfect, but this song I don't like. And there was an extra room with a drum set up. Get in the room and write something new. So me and Tora were there for months before Randy, Mats, or Jorn came. We recorded all the stuff, and then Randy flew over with his 2 basses, and Mats flew over with his keys, and it was us 4. And it was like an assembly line because Jorn couldn't be there yet. So finally Jorn was there, and all 5 of us are there for the first time. And like an assembly line, we would at night, Tommy would have to take a break because he was recording all day. We'd go in, I would press record, or Tor would press record. Randy would do bass with Tommy in the day, and then me and Jorn were writing lyrics in the kitchen while Tor was working with Tommy recording keyboards. At night, me and Jorn and Tor would go do the vocals. Tommy would sleep. It was like because we were living in the studio. I miss those days, you know. You know, there's no time. It's like being in the army. You get up and fight when you're awake.
Yeah.
You know, so it was like one guy would sleep, the other guy would work, and that's how we did it, man. Boom, 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 boom. And at the end, I just remember listening, and I go, my God, we all looked at each other, and we go, have you heard anything like this? Not in an arrogant way, in a real way. And we're like, no, what can you describe it as? I don't know. It's prog, but there's songs, you know? So,
and I think that's part of I mean, like I had said, you know, when we recorded our episode on this, you know, a couple of months ago, this to me is a desert album island because it sounds nothing like I had heard up to that point. And with the exception of maybe Stone Leaders, which obviously you had a hand in, you know, almost 15 years, 16 years later or what have you, it just sounds so unique, but it's not prog for the sake of prog because there's songs and there's melodies and the vocal lines you can, you know, stay in your head as well with some of the most unique drumming and keyboards and the fretless bass. I mean, it's just like it's a perfect storm of sound. And I'll say one other thing about it. The mix. I would still put the mix of that album up against any album I've heard in the last 20 years. That's how good it is. And I don't know if that was like something you realized after you recorded it, or if that's, you know, maybe I'm the first to tell you, but to me, I think the mix just stands out above anything I've heard since then.
It's a brilliant mix. It's Tommy Newton, and I wasn't there. That's why it's probably sounds so even. You know, like before that, in my drum career, I was always kind of slaughtered in mixes. If you listen to the Yngwie albums, you know, no matter how great Yngwie is, in the end, he gets his hand on the dials, and those albums, you know, because Alchemy was a brilliant, brilliant sound. We used a dude from Chris Tangrides, man, Thin Lizzy, Painkiller, you know, and we did it at Criteria Studios where they did Heaven and Hell, and I thought that album was going to be like Modern Drummer cover, and when I got it, I was like, what happened? And, you know, and Riot was the same. No matter how good these songs were and these bands were, the mix, I never really got me. And when I got Burn the Sun delivered to me, I was blown away. I sat in the car in a garage for like 8 hours listening to it again and again. I was like, wow, man. So that was the first album that I could hear myself for real, you know, because I'm hitting the shit out of it on those albums. I'm smacking it. And sometimes the way those albums were mixed, it sounds like I'm in the other room. So
yeah, you know, it's funny. Even when I was lucky enough to be in New York City when you and Jorn were playing with Yngwie, you know, at the Roseland Ballroom, and I remember, and it was, I mean, as a young Jorn fan, and obviously I was a fan of Conception from you know even before this, but as a fan of Ark and obviously some of Jorn's other work, even live you couldn't even hear the mix so well for you guys. That Jorn was down in the mix. And obviously the guitar is, you know, cranked up to 15 and even the drums, it was a cool show. It just wasn't, you know, it wasn't the way I would have mixed it. I'll leave it at that.
Yeah. I mean, it's a totally different head. The Ark music was something, pretty much if I was going to spit on a cymbal, I wanted to hear it. You know what I mean?
Right. And you do, because there's one, I hear the coin that drops in that first track, and it's like, it's one of the coolest sound effects I've ever heard in my life. And it was crystal clear, and it just, like I said, everything popped. And I think that's part of the allure, never mind the fact that the songwriting was so good.
Yeah, I mean, the mix is such a huge part of any album, you know what I mean? And that album, I'm so proud of. To this day, I'm so happy with it. And people are discovering it now, man. You know, I get emails
for the first time. You know, it's like it's one of those things where people just cycle in and out, and they keep, you know, once they gravitate towards it, it never leaves their playlist.
What's your favorite track?
It's funny you mentioned that. We always have a track of the week every time we kind of do this, and it's one of those things where, like, every time I listen to the album, I kind of pick a different song because I just love it so much. But I remember choosing "Torn" at the time that I selected it. And Chris, correct me if I'm wrong, I think you chose the title track.
I thought it was the other way around.
No, I'm pretty sure I have it right. But, you know, either way, like I said, I listened to this earlier this week, and I said to myself, my God, you know, Resurrection popped out for me as the track. So it's like, it really just, it's just the kind of the mood you're in. It's just such a good release. I have to ask.
Speaking of Torn, I want to tell you Torn real quick. When we were writing for the album, Tora and Jorn came to New York City for the last writing session. I was living in Queens, in Kew Gardens, Queens. So they all stayed at my apartment. And one night we went to the bitter end. The bottom line. And we saw Trilak Gurtu, who's a drummer who's amazing. He's an Indian drummer. He plays tabla. He kneels down. There's no bass drum. He plays rototom as his kick. And he's an incredible drummer. And then he does the Indian counting, like da. So if you listen to Torn, Jorn is imitating him. He's imitating Trilak Gurtu. And another cool thing about that song, the whole space guitar thing, because I took them to 48th Street, and they went to Sam Ash or Guitar, one of these places, and Tora bought a Space Echo. So he was obsessed with it. So that song, Torn, was very influenced by that New York visit.
That's hysterical. I have to say it was groundbreaking then. I still think it's groundbreaking now. One of the things that we had heard, we had actually had Roland Grappo on the show from Halloween, and obviously Master Plan. Yeah. And we were talking about the debut Master Plan album with Jorn on vocals. Yeah. And what he said was that when Jorn came into the studio, he just kind of they just gave him the lyrics, and he kind of just did his thing and put it over the top of the music. I was wondering if it was the same thing for this record, where everything was laid down. You gave him, you wrote the vocal, the lyrics with him, and then he just kind of put his inflection on it.
Exactly. Like while they were recording keyboards with Mats, I remember Jorn was like, "Come on, we need two more lines." And it was me and Jorn always writing everything together in the kitchen. And one of the last songs we did was the vocals for Absolute Zero, and we had no idea what are we going to do. So I took a science book out of the bookshelf, and Jorn just started to reading solar flare, aurora, and we took like these scientific terms, and I go, this goes with the title, Burn the Sun. So a lot of it is straight out of a science book, but just cut together. So the way we did it, we wrote the lyrics, me and Jorn, and then at night we would go in, and Tommy was sleeping some of the time, so it was done on 2-inch tape and the Studer, the old days. So you had to press record and play a split second before you recorded. So I was doing it. And when I mentioned Britney Spears, I'm not joking around. Like, Tor, hit me, baby, one more time. He was singing it one day, and don't give up. And when we did, Just a Little, I go, try that Britney Spears thing. Listen to the chorus. Don't give up the fight. That's how he works. You give him lyrics, but let him go. I mean, we didn't have any melodies written. You just let Jorn go, and that's when that magic comes out. And then we say Sting. So, what's that song? Saw your face in a magazine. Feed the Fire.
Yes.
A total Sting, And the cool thing, like, that's why it's special. All of us working together, we were influencing each other. And if you listen to us out of ARC, we all sound different. So I think we helped each other in that thing. You know,
what was your inspiration, or I guess what were you listening to at the time that I guess created some of these drum fills and some of these? I don't even know how to describe it, because it just sounds nothing like any drums that I've heard on anything else. And since then, what were your inspirations for this out, around this time?
I got a lot of Bozio, but not in music. He was starting to get into this solo drumming thing, but not drum solos like Time to Go Get a Hot Dog drum solo.
Right.
Trying to make music, trying to play melodies on drums. So I was listening to a lot of that, and you could hear it in on the first track, Heal the Waters. No, you could hear it in Waking Hour. If you just hear that drum track alone, it's got some kind of melody thing happening. So the track was written on that. That's how we started that track. And that was very Bozio. And then Trilok Gurtu, a lot of the Indian guys, and a lot of these rhythms are from Indian music. The End of Resurrection. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3. So I was doing a lot of the Indian stuff. And then a band called Magma, which is a French prog band, and the drummer is the leader. I like that. Anyway, the drummer is he's the leader of the thing, and he still claims he's from another planet. And people, come on, man, you've been around for 40 years. Tell us the truth. Where you from? He's like, I'm not from here. So Magma, and they write their own language. Like all the albums are sung not in French, not in English, but their own. Are you familiar with Magma?
Tangentially, I subscribe to Prog Magazine, so I've seen their stuff, but I'm not familiar with the music, but I kind of know a little bit of the backstory there. So it's funny that you mentioned it.
Yeah, so it was pretty much a lot of the Indian stuff, a lot of the Magma stuff, and very Bozio, Terry Bozio, very Bozio. Oh, a little joke there. Yeah, that, and I'm trying to think what else, man. Listening to. No, man, when I'm going to record or I'm going to write, I try to stay away from listening to anybody's music, so I don't try to steal it, or I don't subliminally wake up, I got a lick.
Meanwhile, yeah.
You know what I mean?
Exactly. So after the album comes together, I know that I remember it vividly. This got absolute like rave reviews in 2001 when it came out. I know that you played the Prague Power Festival the following year, or actually I guess it was later that year when it came out. One of my biggest regrets was missing that show. It's a festival that I've been attending since 2002, but I missed ARC, and I have to live with that. But that's my cross to bear. I guess my question for you is, in the final days of the band, will you tell how did everything kind of just like not carry over with that third album?
Basically, we're good musicians, but we're the three stupidest people on earth. And I'm Sicilian. I have a Sicilian head, but I don't know what their excuse is. We, I don't know, man. I mean, we got along musically, and we were great friends. There's really no problem. There was no problem, you know. But I think the problems started within the band, and it's stupid because everybody was kind of like, I wanted to, it's one of those things you always ask, how did that band break up? They're so stupid. Why don't they get together again? It's one of those situations where we knew we had something great. And I feel if we kept going, because we were different, we had songs. Joe Lynn Turner said that ARC was a rock band. You know, he said it's kind of, to him, it's like AC/DC playing Prague. And our lifestyle was that way, which separated us from the other guys. You know, we weren't doing Friday night video fights, and we were really video game fights. You know, I mean,
yeah.
We came from Malmsteen's band. We were kind of hardcore, you know, but it was a rock band, and yeah, the songs were involved. So I kind of agree with that. It's like this rock band playing Prague, but problems started to start, and unfortunately, we never got over them. And then, you know, on the way that we tried to make the third album, I mean, we did the drum tracks twice. The drum tracks are done. Me and Tor wrote a lot of the stuff. And we went to Germany to do the third album, and that's where problems really started. And
Gotcha.
We broke up there for the first time, and then we got back together, me and Tora, and we broke up again, and we broke up again. And the reason I live in Italy right now is because I went to Sweden 9 years ago to start ARC again, and we broke up again. And I didn't want to go back to New York, so a friend of mine said, come to Italy and do a drum clinic, and I've been here ever since. I never left. So,
well, God bless. It's I know it's been a wild ride for you. When you, I guess, had gone back into the studio, and I guess I'm going back to like 2006, 2007, and you recorded the Union Radio album. Are there? I mean, I hear ARC on that with a lot of your drumming. Was there carryover from a couple of years prior before you recorded that album?
It wasn't like I said, I have this left over. I was going to use it on the third ARC album. It's just because I'm not being like, me, but I was a big part of the writing process from drumming, because a lot of ARC stuff started from a drum beat or jamming. Most of it started from, jamming or give me some kind of strange groove. And so with Union Radio, it's the same type of thing. And also, I wrote half the lyrics on the ARC album. So I wrote all the lyrics on Union Radio. So, and also letting the guitarist kind of do his thing. And I put a speed limit in the studio. I said, 55 miles an hour, guitar players. And I used a lot more keys on this album. I didn't want it so riffy. So, but yeah, I mean, I guess it's going to sound like ARC if I'm going to do the drums, and that's how the writing starts. But that album, the Union Radio album, was kind of like National Geographic for me, because instead of hiring people to come in, I went to them. Like, I played with James Labrie. I met Marco Sfoli. So he was the first guitarist I used. I flew to Italy, and we sat down with all the drum tracks are recorded first for Union Radio with songs in mind. And I would travel to different countries with the drum tracks and say, let's write to this. Right. We sat in Marco Sfoli's bedroom, and you could see the volcano Vesuvius, because he lives right near Napoli. And he said, okay, cool groove. What do you want me to play? And my heart dropped. I'm like, I thought he was just going to do something. And I went in the bathroom like, what am I going to tell this guy? And I came out and I gave him like, an idea. Like, I sang something to him. And that's how we started to do it. To do it that way, you just got to work with really, really talented people, so they make you sound good. But
you got an all-star cast on that album. I could go through the names, but I'll let people pull it up from themselves. But you've got world-class vocalists on all of these tracks, it really is amazing the cast that you have, on that album. So it's just funny because it sounds so cohesive, given the fact that it's all over the place.
Yeah. I mean, Vitaly Kupri, Mike DeMeo, James Labrie, Randy Colvin. It goes on. I always say this, who your real friends are when you have to move. Like Saturday morning, hey, could you help me move? Your real friend comes to help you move, and when you have to make a solo album.
Yeah, there you go. I haven't had the experience of the latter, but having been in that first spot, I can only imagine what it's like. But job well done. I want to kind of transition, I guess, to something I had mentioned earlier. In 2019, you had released Stone Leaders, which to me was always the second coming of ARC. Everything from Dino Jalusic, who may as well be the second coming of Jorn Land, in my opinion, or when he wants to be. I mean, he can do so much stuff, obviously. But that album was the closest thing I've ever heard to Burn the Sun, which is the biggest compliment I can give it.
That's great, amazing.
How did you? Yeah. And I remember hearing it. I'm like, ARC is back, right, under a new name. That's kind of the way I looked at it. How did that project come together with a bunch of guys that at that point nobody had ever heard of?
Yeah, I mean, let me see. Yeah, I went to do a drum clinic with my friend. I did a lot of his records, Mysteria. All right, Mysteria is a keyboard player from Italy, and he moved to Croatia. And he moved to Zagreb. So he said, he talks like this, fratello. You can come and do a drum clinic in the school I work at. And I said, great. So I flew to Croatia, And I told him, I don't only want to do drums. Let's jam some stuff too. Can you get me some musicians? So he hooked me up with this guy, Ivan on guitar, who's on Stone Leaders. Ivan, amazing. Great guy, great friend, great guitar player. And bass player Marco and Mysteria. So we jammed the first jam. It's online. You could drum clinic in Zagreb. We did Burn, and Ivan sang, and Marco played bass, and I played drums. So I said, man, this was like a really great first meeting, a first jam. And those guys said, yeah, let's get your number. So we kept in touch, and I said, maybe we'll do something. So when I don't know, we just started to talk, me and Ivan, and we said, let's start. So Ivan flew here. We started to write riffs, and then I flew to Croatia. We started to write, I wrote lyrics, and Ivan was going to sing everything. And when we went into the studio to sing, I said, we need some more keys. We need keys, man. And instead of having like a 5-piece band, because in those days, there was still hopes of touring. Not like now with all the COVID and everything. So I said, wouldn't it be great if we knew a keyboard player who could sing? And he goes, I know one, this guy Dino. And I said, call him up. So Dino came in, and he said, what do you want me to play? And I said, just play something and sing. Boom. And he ripped it up. I was like, okay. So Ivan was like, oh, I'm cool with 2 vocals. And I said, my favorite band is The Who. Townsend and Daltrey sing. Let's do a double vocal band. So again, we wrote all the stuff, me and Ivan, and put down the bass, and Dino put down the keys, and then Dino did all the vocals. And yeah, I mean, I wish it was heard more, that record, but some things just get buried. I think it's a great record, man.
Yeah, so, it's very good. And like I said, it's again, that arc style that we had talked about earlier. Yeah. Nobody really doing anything in that vein. This to me was the closest thing. Man. Yeah.
Like I got contacted by a couple of record companies, and I said, can you do it kind of like Arc? And I said, yeah, man, like I know the recipe.
Yeah, you're the master chef, right? You need the right ingredients, I guess.
Yeah, the ingredients are the right guys to work with, man.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's great.
It's cool.
So I have to ask you, I guess, this question before we kind of transition into what you're doing nowadays with the Michael Romeo stuff and everything else. Do you have a favorite track from Burn the Sun or from the debut? Just what are you most proud of from that record?
Well, if you're Arc fans, and I love you for that, thank you. Did you know Burn the Sun is a concept album, but we didn't tell it in order? It's told out of order. It's like throwing puzzle pieces on the table, and now you got to put it together. And our goal was, when we put it out, we were going to before the third album, our plan was to have some kind of contest. Now you heard Burn the Sun. Can you put these songs in order and make a story? And that was we had a lot of weird things.
That's interesting. Yeah,
that's a really cool idea. I love that.
Yeah, another cool idea was we were going to invite Arc fans in the studio and say, you can be on the next Arc album. And we were going to put chairs all around me in a circle, and I was going to hit their heads with drumsticks, and we were going to mic them, all the way around. We call them drum heads. Right? And we're going to, like the Phil and Fat Bottom Girls. I was going to go around and hit the heads and hear, in stereo. Like stupid ideas like that we never got to do. But, yeah, my favorite track is Heal the Waters and the chorus of Feed the Fire. Because Feed the Fire was a completely different verse, and I went to Hamburg. We were recording in Germany. A friend of mine said, come visit me in Hamburg. I took a break because I was recording like mad and writing for months. I went to Hamburg for like 3 days. I come back, and these guys like, that. I said, what the hell do you do? It sounds like Andy Summers playing guitar. I hated the verse. I hated that thing. And we had a real major brawl in the studio. I said, dude, it's like punky, man. Like, what are you doing? And Tommy Newton said, no, we're going to keep it, because he's the producer. And that was what a producer was for, pretty much. He actually said, I'm going to pull rank on you. I'm pulling rank. So I got my stripes ripped off, and they kept it. And I hated it. But now I love it.
Sometimes it takes a while to marinate.
Yeah, I mean, definitely Heal the Waters, and I love Feed the Fire, and Resurrection. Resurrection's cool. Resurrection, speaking of Bozio, There's a song from Zappa called Peaches and Regalia. So if you listen to Peaches and Regalia rhythm, it's Resurrection. It's the same exact rhythm as Peaches and Regalia, but different notes. So that's an example of how Bozio influenced Burn the Sun. Yeah, so it would be Heal the Waters, Resurrection, and the chorus of Feed the Fire.
Good choices. Justin has done most of the talking here. He's our resident proud guy. I'm the resident power guy. So I'd be remiss if I didn't mention Holy Hell, who I was a huge fan of.
Oh, cool.
And I can't remember if you were in the band the last time I saw them live. They were opening for Manowar in Cleveland, and I had driven with some friends from Rochester. It was, and I think it was the show. There was 2 shows in a row, and the first night someone got hurt crowd surfing, and the second night they told everybody no crowd surfing. So if that rings a bell, I was there. I loved what Holy Hell did because there was so many talented musicians in that band. Joe Stump was just this out there guitar player. I remember he was like whipping his guitar strings with the cord and everything, and he was humping his guitar. He was having a grand old time.
He's great.
And I love Maria's vocals. How did you get involved in Holy Hell? And is there any chance that there'll ever be any more music from them?
Okay, like Joe was a big fan of Yngwie, and Mats Olausen played for Joe Stump. So through that, I met Joe, right? And I remember hearing his name all the time. And just out of the blue one day, he called me and he said, I got this band Holy Hell, and we need a drummer to do, I think, those shows. I think there was 5 shows or something, and it was the Cleveland shows. So Joe pretty much called me to do those shows, and we all got along. And Maria's great. Maria's got like this, she's like influenced by Pat Benatar, and you can see it in the moves and the vocals, and that makes it different than a lot of the gothic-y, like, whoa, 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 whoa. You know, she's got more of that 70s rock Benatar thing, which I love, you know?
Yeah, same.
So really talented people in the band. As far as doing that again, I don't think so. I just got a different head, you know, what I want to do now. But
sure.
They were all good people and great players, man. Yeah, so pretty much Joe Stump got me into that. Joe called me. From there, we went and recorded, and also we did more gigs, opening up for Manowar.
I just remember being really impressed with how well it came off live, and just thinking to myself, like, man, that's what you want to hear in an opening band at a show. Like, you don't want to be bored or waiting for the next band. Like, I thought that you guys really commanded the stage, and I enjoyed that a lot. So I just wanted to throw that in.
It was a great live band. Thank you. Yeah, it was a great live band, and I think you're right. More than on record, live it gelled better it gelled better live, I think. Yeah. Cool.
Most recently, I think we saw you back playing with Labyrinth down in Atlanta. So a couple of years ago when you were in town with them, which was obviously awesome. I guess there's an Italian connection there because obviously all those guys are from Italy. So I'm assuming that's how you got involved with that.
Simone Milanoni, who was the guy who I got, amazing friend of mine. He's the dude we did the Romeo albums with, the engineer. We recorded both albums at his studio, and I did the Labyrinth album there. All the Italian rock musicians know each other, and Frontiers Records is here in Italy, so pretty much the Frontiers A&R and Simone recommended me. Those guys called me, and we went to record the album, and I love that album.
Yeah, it's a great album.
Architecture of a God it's a great album.
And it's a different style for you because you don't usually do the power metal stuff, but obviously you can pull it off, you know.
Well, I did Power Mad. I mean, here's a funny thing about that. I was playing Power Mad was for anybody who doesn't know Power Mad, they were from Minnesota, and I was a session guy. I don't know how long you got, but it's a long story. But
let's hear it.
Yeah, so this band, I was living in Long Island, and I was playing pool with my father down the basement. I was young, man, like fucking 20 or 19 or something. And my mother said, hey, Warner Brothers Records is on the phone. I'm like, yeah, what friend is messing around now? I got on the phone, and it was a guy from Warner Brothers, and he said, I got this band, and we need you tomorrow because the drummer is not working out, and we're in a major studio doing a major album. Can you give us a demo of anything, please, please? So the next day I went to Artie, which is that music recording school in Long Island.
Yep.
I just recorded drum tracks, but with a professional sound. I sent it to the guys. They called me at night, and they said, dude, those double bass, you're wailing on the double bass. You're wailing. Remember that word? Dude, you're wailing. And they came to my parents' basement. I played for them. The next day I was in the studio. So in those days, there was no Pro Tools. If you had a 12-minute song, you got to play from start to finish.
Yep.
And that's where it was, man. I just got there and I hear, I'm like, oh, this is going to be hell because I have to play the whole thing. And then there's some crazy time signatures. So I'm in the studio setting the drums up, and there's this dude sitting in the control room with the band. I'm like, who's he? Oh, that's the drummer. He's going to tell you what to play. I'm like, oh my God. Not only do you got to record from start to finish, there's no punching, but now I got a guy telling me what I got to do. Thank God I went to music school because I can read. So I charted everything. And after the whole take, the guy would come in, you got to do it again because you missed that drum fill. And it was crazy. So
while he himself, it's not working out with, so obviously it's like taking orders from,
it was tough. So we did it. And, the funny thing is after the whole album was recorded, they called me to do the tour. I was like, why didn't you let me play my stuff? So anyway, so we got a gig with David Lynch in the movie Wild at Heart. And David Lynch, brilliant. Nothing's over until it's over. He finished Wild at Heart with Nicolas Cage and Laura Dern. And then he heard Slaughterhouse, which the song that we did. And he loved the song so much, he wrote us into the movie. So we all flew to LA. We went to this place called the Palomino, and they named it the Hurricane Club. And we worked with David Lynch and Nicolas Cage. It was amazing experience. But that song, Slaughterhouse, the big Labyrinth album, they have a song called Feel, and it's an instrumental. It's like, it's pretty much the same thing as that Power Man, and I didn't know that. So when I got the gig to record the album, I was sitting in the kitchen with the guitar player, Carlo, and he says, this song Feel, it's kind of power metal, but it's dancey. We got the idea from some band that was in this movie. And he pulled it up. I said, dude, that's me. I'm sitting in your kitchen and you're talking about our song. He goes, get out of here. I said, yeah. So I was playing the power metal stuff in 1988. And this is only like 3 or 4 years ago where we're sitting in his kitchen.
Yeah. Small world.
I go, dude, let me just make a suggestion. Instead of everything being I said, if you listen to Burn the Sun, the song is like Absolute Zero. It's still digga, 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 but I do like drum and bass jungle beats. And he goes, I love it. So cool. So our plan was to not only do that. And if you hear some of the tracks on Architecture of a God, I'm doing drum and bassy stuff. And also it's the first album where I used acoustic and electric drums together. So there's some electronic percussion on that. And so Burn the Sun again. I used to walk around New York City, and one night I walked into a place called the Z-Bar, and I saw this guy, Jojo Mayer, ripping up this jungle drum and bass stuff live. And I said, oh my God, that's where I got the influence of Absolute Zero. So pretty much that Burn the Sun, I still take things from that. You know what I mean? That's which I guess is a testament to the album's strength, right? Because if those ideas are still ingrained 20 years later, you struck gold, right? And that's what I've always said in terms of just like the esteem that level is, that album is in. Let's just talk about, obviously next month you have the Michael Romeo album coming out, War of the Worlds Part 2, follow up to his effort from, it's right. It's March 25th. Yeah,
March 25th. I'm sorry. Originally, it was coming out in February. I think they pushed it back to March 25th. You're absolutely right. Been about 4 years since the first part. What can fans expect out of Part 2?
A better kick drum sound. No, I love the kick drum sound of the first one, but man, Simone Militone, man, we're a team. He's such an amazing engineer. Everything on those albums are live. It's not samples and stuff. Like a lot of the metal bands, it's all sampled now.
Mm-hmm.
That's like hours and hours and days of getting a drum sound, you know, and really like going for a sound and you know, making it sound huge and making it sound modern at the same time. It's not easy, but he's brilliant. And as far as this album, the second album, the Romeo album, I mean, it's just incredible. The songs are better, in my opinion. He's ripping it up. I mean, he's always ripping it up, but he's really playing stuff that not many guitar players have ever played before. And when he solos, you know, he doubles everything. So every solo he does, he's doing the same exact thing on top of that. That's pretty hardcore.
Yeah, he's a machine. I don't know how he does it. You'd think he would have four hands with some of the stuff that he pulls off, but he does it.
He's ridiculous. Yeah, and then new vocals. Rick is not singing on it. Dino's singing on this one.
Yes.
And you know, it's still JD on bass, who's unbelievable bass player. He plays with Zach Wilde, Black Label Society. Mm-hmm. So it's the same guys, different guys singing, and in my opinion, better songs. And I don't know, I got to play a little more. You know, like second album I did with him, Mike pretty much sends me a demo because he's a great drummer, by the way. Not a great drummer. I mean, he knows what he's doing.
Right, so right.
If he's going to give you an idea, like a drum machine idea, it's realistic. Like Malmsteen used to send me this thing, and he had like this 30-second note button for the kick drums, like brrr, brrr, brrr. Unrealistic. But Mike knows what he's doing as far as like he pretty much says stick to my kick drum patterns, but you can do your stuff around it, you know, or you know your linear stuff. On this one, I took it out more, and it's really tasty, man. I'm really happy with it. The mix is killer. The songs are great, and I'm looking forward to it, man.
Yeah, we're definitely looking forward to that. And before we let you go, why don't you tell us a little bit about what else you have going on and what else we can expect from you in the future?
Okay. There's a little Arc surprise. We're not getting together. It's not a third album, but in the near future, you'll see the name Arc happening. And it's something I'm really super, super excited about because Arc is my baby. And it's something I'm just really psyched about. So anybody who's into Arc, there's something cooking, but I can't say, unfortunately, but it's not a third album. That's it. No.
I'm excited. I'm curious, and I'll leave it at that for now. So there's something brewing with that name, which will be fun. What about you? What else do you have going on in the not so distant future?
Ever since this lockdown thing, it actually helped me out when they let us out because like all the musicians were, you know, everybody was sitting in and making albums, and then when they got out, they needed people to record. They needed a drummer. So in a strange way, the damn disease helped me.
Right.
You know, I've been recording like crazy, but that has started to slow down a bit. I also think people are still up in the air, paranoid. They don't, you know, I've done some gigs and sometimes it's packed and sometimes it's 10 people. So it's very unpredictable. So between recording and gigging being so strange, I decided I'm going to do my second drum book. So I have a new drum book. I'm doing it. It comes with a video and it's killer. It's all on linear drumming. Linear drumming you'll hear all over the Arc and Mike Romeo albums. It's kind of like when between the kick and snare, you hear strange patterns between bells and cymbals and everything, filling in the holes and also playing melody on the cymbals, but you're still keeping that original drum beat. So the band loves you. The band will not kick you out for doing linear. So I got the linear book coming out. It's called United Sounds of Separation. Ooh, a good one.
I like it. I like it. And when is there a release date on that at this point, or still to be determined?
I wish, man. I mean, every day I'm trying to finish it. Obviously, but now I got a deadline. Like I have to get it done by springtime. Has to be finished, and I'm hoping to release it summer or definitely by the fall. And I'm really happy with this thing, man. So pretty much I'm diving back into the education thing, and I hope things open up again and we could really start rocking shows, you know. But to me, it's like in 1976, after Jaws came out, you know, everybody went in Robert Moses and Jones Beach. We all jumped in the water. But after that movie, at least for 3 years, you wouldn't even put your foot in the water. So I think
some would argue you shouldn't go back to Jones Beach now, but for different reasons. But that's a story for another podcast. John, I want to obviously on behalf of Chris and myself, we want to thank you for joining us. It's been an absolute pleasure. I'm glad to see that you're doing well. I'm looking forward to the drum book, obviously, the Romeo album coming out in a couple of weeks, and when you have some time, maybe jump on with us again.
Yeah, man. Anytime you want. And when I come back to New York, maybe we'll hang. I'll meet you guys.
Sounds good. Hit me up, and we'll get together.
Yeah, you're both. You're in Long Island still, and you're in what? Where were you guys living? I forgot.
Yeah, I'm in Floral Park, down on Long Island, and Chris over here is way upstate. But maybe he can venture down.
I live in Rochester. I'm like an hour and a half away from Canada.
All right. Go to Canada, you get the good beer. They got the Moosehead, and it's like, you know, the really strong stuff. It's worth driving over the border. No, don't drive over.
I love Moosehead.
I don't think they'll let me over the border.
No, that ain't happening.
Cheers, John. Have a great one.
Yeah, there you go.
Enjoy the birthday. Have a good one, and we'll catch you soon.
Beautiful. Thanks, guys.
Thanks, man.
Thank you, John.
Bye.